Final type of assignment that we're going to be covering are the Learnsmart assignments. Now, Learnsmart is our adaptive technology, and basically what that means is it's a personalized study tool for your student that's meant to maximize productivity and efficiency while your students study. Right? So I'm going to scroll down, and you'll see that each of the Learnsmart assignments, which have the black and white LS to the left, are broken up by chapter. And that's because each assignment is tied directly into a chapter in a book, in this case medical terminology. So it's going to be whatever book is embedded in your Connect course. And not every single Connect course has Learnsmart, but most of them do, so this is going to be something that you see a lot of. So I'm going to click on chapter 1, right? And it's going to give me the student progress, but since I'm in instructor mode, the only way that I can actually view this is to go into the preview mode, and then it allows me to preview the study module as a student. Okay, so when this loads, the first time a student comes in, they're going to be asked to create an alias. All right, it's something that we'll talk about a little later on, but just keep that in mind, and they always have the option to click anonymous. And you're going to be able to see that the first time that you log in as an instructor, it's going to ask you to do the same thing. And another thing that we'll point out is the first time a student comes in, they are going to see the intro. All right, so the intro is just an overview of what Learnsmart is and what it can do, and if a student closes that out the first time they come in, they can always open it up again by clicking down here on View Intro. And it's just got a lot of overview features. So what can Learnsmart do for me? Why are there 4 buttons to answer questions? And we'll talk about that a little later. How do I track my progress? How do I study efficiently? So it's all right here, point and click for your students. All right, so let's talk about the actual interface. You'll see that on the bottom I've got all the chapters that correlate to the textbook, and if I were to ever want to go into a specific chapter, I could just click on the chapter. So I'll click on chapter 4, suffixes, and you'll see that it loads up with chapter 4, and it's noted here on the left hand side. So I'm going to go back into chapter 1, which is the assignment that I clicked on to begin with. Right, so if I scroll over, you'll see that it gives me the due date, which is the 31st of January 2014. It tells me my progress, and it also gives me the amount of points that are assigned to that particular module. If I look up, you'll see that it gives me the chapter that I'm in. It tells me what I'm going to be covering and what I'm expected to learn as I work through this. On the right-hand side, once again, just gives the student a visual representation of how much time has passed till the due date, so they can make sure that they're finishing this on time. Shows them in their assignment progress and the total amount of points, and then it just lets them know what they're getting ready to learn. So one thing I want to point out before I actually open this, Learnsmart is not an assessment. This is a practice and study tool to get your students ready for the assessment. So the 100 points that you see over here, this is basically just to get the students to take the assignment seriously, all right? So it's a safe learning environment. They're not penalized for missing questions. Rather, they're awarded for completing the assignment. So when it says my progress is 0%, that means I haven't completed anything. If I complete 100% of the questions that I'm going to see momentarily when I click on Learn before the due date, then I'm going to get 100%. And that's why this is a very safe environment for the students to learn in. So let's click on Learn and jump in. All right, so let's talk about the actual interface here. You see the assignment progress is up at the top, and it lets me know for this particular assignment I have 19 items left. That means I have to answer 19 questions correctly to be done with this particular assignment. If I move over on the right hand side, you'll see that there's a standings board. So it says standings for all. And this is the alias that I spoke of earlier. So I made this one MTC training. But this is a gaming function that we built in for students that are hyper competitive, or for students that wanted to make study time a little more fun. Okay, so they come in, they do their work, and they're awarded points, and we'll talk about how those points actually filter in. But they've got 3 different options for viewing the game standings. All right, you've got standings for all. This is everybody in the entire country. Standings for your section. This is going to be just the students that are registered for your Connect section, so your classmates. And then disabled. If a student does not want to be seen and doesn't want to see anyone else, they disable, and they basically are just disappeared from the entire gaming function. I'm going to turn this back on so I can explain to you how the scoring occurs though. And I also want to point out that at any time if a student, like let's say this student at the top decides, you know what, I don't want my actual name displayed, they can click on their alias and they can change it. So I'm going to make this MTC training 2012. Okay. All right, and now I've got a new name. So it's as easy as that to change. Okay, so a moment ago I just told you that if you complete all 19 of the items that you've got left for this assignment, you're going to get 100%, and now you're seeing scores over here. So you're probably thinking, why is that? Well, the scores are dictated in the gaming function based on the confidence level of the student and the right or wrong answer. So as a rule of thumb, a student that says, I know it, will get plus or minus 70 points. I think so is plus or minus 60. Unsure is plus or minus 50, and no idea has plus or minus of 0 because it's low risk, low reward. Okay, so that's purely gaming function built in. We like to know the student's confidence level because it's one of about 20 items that we're collecting on each question to fine tune the program so that we can make sure that the student sees what's most beneficial next. All right, so I'm going to answer a few questions really quickly. I will say that I'm unsure about this, and the Latin word for nerve is... All right, I submit the answer, and it says that I am wrong. I wrote nervo. The correct answer was nervous. All right, so it tells me that I'm incorrect. Note that the student got instant feedback, and when I click OK, 19 items will remain on the board. All right, so next up I've got a true or false question. True or false, autopsy and biopsy reports are very similar reports. I'm going to say I know this, and that's false. All right, so it tells me that I got a correct answer. I'll click OK, and you'll see that my 19 items left goes down to 18. And I gain a little progress on my assignment progress meter. The phonetic pronunciation sternum is for the word. I'm going to say I know this. All right, so I got the correct answer. I'm going to click OK. You'll see this go down to 17. So now I'm going to stop for just a second and explain to you what dictates the questions that the students see and how it's presented to them. So our subject matter experts and writers all work together to tag our content on 3 levels. So level 1 is must know. It's core content material, and it's mission critical not only to the student's success in this chapter, but to their success in the entire course. So students are going to see the core content early and often. They're going to see it in different ways, and they're going to have to develop a mastery of that material. Level 2 material is good to know. It's right on the edge of the core content. Sometimes it provides good context for the core content, but it's not necessarily mission critical. But if a student demonstrates a proficiency with some of the core material, then we'll start to filter in some of the level 2 components to see if the student's ready for those pieces of material. Level 3 content is great to know, and this is the more contextualized components of the chapter. Not every student's going to see level 3, but if a student has demonstrated a mastery of the core content for this chapter and a proficiency for the level 2 material, since we're trying to maximize their productivity and efficiency, and we can do so by making sure that they're studying material that they've demonstrated they're ready for, then we're going to start to push in some of that level 3 material so that they make the most of their time while they're studying. So on the flip side of that, we've got many different question types that the students will see. The first is an engagement question. So if the system notices that a student is probably going to disengage with Learnsmart, meaning they've missed 4 or 5 questions in a row, it's intelligent enough to either filter back into something that a student has already answered correctly, or else to give the student the answer just to keep them engaged a little longer in hopes that they are going to master some content and begin progressing through the assignment. The easiest type of question that they'll see is true and false or multiple choice. Working up the difficulty ladder, you've got labeling, matching, and multiple right answer. And then finally, the most difficult question type that the students will see is going to be the fill in the blank question. And I'm asked often, does spelling matter? The answer is it depends. If it's an accounting course and a student misspells ledger, odds are Learnsmart will turn yellow. It'll say, you know what, you're close on this, but you need to work on your spelling. We're still going to take it out of your items left. If it's something where spelling is mission critical, like med term or medical assisting, then Learnsmart will turn yellow and it'll say you're very close, but you have to spell this correctly for us to take this out of your items left. And it'll leave it in the items left. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that the students are going to be presented with that particular question again, but Learnsmart will always remember that the student was close but didn't misspell it. Learnsmart will always make sure to ask the student to demonstrate mastery on that topic later with the spelling. All right, so I kind of touched on this a second ago. This 17 items left is deceiving. That doesn't mean that there are 17 questions in this deck that a student can just click no idea and go through and get the answers for. The 17 items are fluid, so based on how each student is performing, they're going to see different questions. If a student's struggling, we're going to keep them focused on the level 1 material, the core content, because they need that material in order to have success in the course. Whereas if another student has demonstrated mastery with that core content, we're going to start to see if they can answer some of the more difficult questions in the chapter. So that's the way that this 17 items left is able to be fluid and very unique for each individual student. Okay, so now I'm going to exit out of the program and click Home. All right, and you'll see that I've progressed up to 10%. So once again, if I were to never do any more work before the due date, I'm going to get a 10% on this assignment. But I want to show you some of the reporting that the students have access to. So as you can see, the students have access to a wide array of reports. So first we've got the topic scores, and this is going to give the student information on how they're doing in each of the chapters. So you'll see that for my first chapter, Learning Terminology, it gives me the amount of time that I've spent in the course, spent in this particular chapter rather. It gives me the question count and my correctness level. So the student can get a lot of information about how they're doing as they work through each of the chapters. Current learning status. Now this is going to show you how much you have left to learn and how much you should refresh so that you don't forget your new knowledge. Okay, so for learning terminology, it says that I'm 10% done with this assignment. I need to answer 17 more items before I can proceed. Time estimated that it should need based on national statistics is 5 minutes. And right now I don't have anything that I need to refresh, and that's mostly due to the fact that I haven't really gone through much of the chapter yet. Alright, so next up you've got the missed questions, and I'm actually going to cover that at the end. Most challenging learning objectives. This is going to take a look, kind of the 10,000 foot view, and tell you which learning objectives the student is struggling with the most, and they can actually click on any of those objectives and it'll take you right into the ebook. Self-assessment, this lets the student know what percentage of the time they're right when they say I know it and what percentage of the time they're wrong. Tree of knowledge allows the student to see a visual representation of what they're learning. So I'm going to go ahead and click on missed questions now so you can see how this works. Alright, so this is going to show the student the questions that they've missed as they work through their chapter assignments. So I've only missed one thus far. I can open it and actually try to answer the question, and I believe it was nervous. I was correct. Alright, so now I can go back to my home. Another thing that the student has access to do is create a practice quiz. If they click on this, they simply select the chapter they'd like to use as the pool, and then how many questions they want to answer. And they click Start Quiz, and it allows them to quiz themselves. It's a great practice to get into right before some type of exam. Okay, so I'm going to back out of this, and I'm now going to go into the Performance tab, and I'm going to take a look at all the reports, and I will show you, as an instructor, how you're able to get reporting information via Learnsmart. Okay, so as an instructor, we've got access to all of the same reports that the students have. You can do the progress overview, student details. It's going to give you time on task as well as how your students are faring as they progress through each of the chapters. Module details breaks down how your students are doing in each of the chapters and subsections of each chapter. Practice quizzes will let you see if your students are running practice quizzes and how they're faring. The metacognitive piece here, this allows you to see if your students are aware. So are they saying I think so and then missing it or not? And then these two are the most important reports that you can run. So most challenging learning objectives, I always implore instructors to run this before class. If you make Learnsmart assignments due the night before class or the morning before class, then you can run this at the beginning of class. You'll know exactly where your students are struggling, what areas of the book you need to focus on, and then we'll actually open up this missed questions because this is a really great report to run in front of your students. Okay, so I've opened this up, and let's just say that the day before your students finish chapter 1, you're in your face-to-face meeting. You can now open this report and say, hello students, thanks for doing your chapter 1 assignment. Let's take a look at the most frequently missed questions that you had. This tells you the 10 most missed questions that your students have, gives you a brief overview, and actually allows you to try the question. So it's a really unique way for you to identify where your students are struggling, because let's face it, they might not want to tell you, or they may not even know. So this is a great way to identify gaps and really pinpoint it and attack it in class. Okay, so we'll back out of this. So I've loaded Learnsmart back up for a different course, and it's because I want to show you something that some of your students may be using in Learnsmart. Learnsmart has a sister product that's called Smartbook. It's not available for every title, but for a lot of the titles that you will be using, Smartbook is available. I want to be clear when I say that it is the exact same program as Learnsmart. The students' results for Smartbook and Learnsmart go to the same part of the gradebook. You get the same reporting functionality. It's just an extra experience that we've added for some of the students that want to take the Learnsmart component and add an interactive, adaptive reading experience. So for this particular chapter, I'm going to go to chapter 1. All right, so I'm in Learnsmart now. All right, so I can go do my Learnsmart questions, or if it's available, you'll see down here at the bottom there's an option that says go to Smartbook. So a student can click go to Smartbook, they click yes. Whatever parameters were set for your Learnsmart assignment will filter over to Smartbook. So if there are 17 items left for a Learnsmart assignment, there will only be 17 items left for the Smartbook assignment. They are one in the same, okay? Right, so if I go to chapter 1 here, the students will see that they can click on Start Learning, and it's going to take them into the book and give them a quick preview of what they're about to learn. Next, they can click on the Read tab, and this is just the ebook, okay? And you'll notice that some of the areas in the text are grayed out. Others have highlights, and rather than searching page to page, the students can actually hover over on the right-hand side and just go highlight area to highlight area. And the reason that this is important is because Smartbook knows what questions Learnsmart needs to ask a student that's working through chapter 1 of this textbook. So it goes ahead and it highlights those areas so that as a student reads through the ebook, they know exactly what they're going to be asked about in Learnsmart. So this is usually going to be the core content. Once again, it starts to deviate as it learns how the student is progressing, and if they're ready for some of the more difficult material, it will start highlighting that material for the individual student. Okay, so a student comes in, they do some reading, they've checked out some of these highlighted areas, and now they can go over to the practice mode, and this is when Learnsmart comes into play. So these are the same Learnsmart questions that would appear if the student was just working in Learnsmart. It's just that they have Smartbook to help them intelligently read before they go in and do the practice. The progress is updated up here. If a student decides that they don't want to interact with Smartbook anymore, which I never see happen because students love this, they can click on this little 3-lined menu and go back to Learnsmart. Okay, and any questions that were answered in Smartbook will filter over to Learnsmart. So once again, they're the same program. It's just that with Learnsmart, you've got adaptive study and practice, and with Smartbook, you take the adaptive study and practice and you integrate that with an adaptive reading experience. Okay, so that's the Learnsmart assignment. I think that your students will have a lot of fun and a lot of success if you implement these in your courses.